Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is David Beeson. I am your host for today's conversation. And my guest today is Alex Blum, CEO and founder of Applied Bioplastics. We're going to be talking about his journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek of what it's really like to build and operate a business. Alex, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here today. I would love for you to give us a little bit of background of who you are and tell us a little bit about your business as well.
For sure. Thank you, David, and thanks for the opportunity to be on the show. Applied Bioplastics is a multinational startup that has a number of products, but the three things we're really focused on are durable, low-carbon plastic that's cheaper than oil. We also make weatherproof and refugee shelters. And lastly, we're working on an armor that will save buildings, critical infrastructure, and civilian lives from drone attacks.
Awesome. If you don't mind me asking, how did you get into this type of business? Like have you always had like a passion for this kind of stuff, or were you more
No, not at
like,
all.
did you go?
Not
Yeah.
at all, man. So I grew up next to NASA, and what an idyllic time the '90s were, right? But I was born in 1990 in Houston. Grew up next to NASA. I was always fascinated by science because of that, but never thought I was smart enough to do anything in science industry or anything like that. I decided to do what all C students do, which is run for office. But anyways, yeah, no, I got a degree in rhetoric from the University of Texas at Austin. I did run for office as soon as I graduated. I lost, but got something really important done, which was I pressured the local government to put some stoplights at some very dangerous intersections in North Austin. That gave me a really good feeling, and that feeling is going to be important later. But everybody's got to make money, so I went into sales. With a degree in rhetoric, I call that a philosophy degree for people who don't want to be poor. But I went into tech sales. I worked for Oracle. I worked for Amazon. Worked for WP Engine, a startup here in Austin, as well as Thousand Eyes, which is now owned by Cisco, another startup that was based in SF but had a pretty big Austin presence. It was at Thousand Eyes as a salesman that I closed the biggest deal of my life. It was a multi-million dollar deal with Visa. I got paid $500,000. I was 27 years old. I was freshly divorced, and I was just like, man, I've got nothing. I have zero assets. I have zero debt. What to do with $500,000. And I thought about it for a while and I decided, look, it's 2 weeks into the fiscal. I've already crushed my annual quota. I'm going to be in accelerators for the rest of the year. I'm going to make so much money this year. I'm going to give away that first check to charity because I want that feeling
Oh,
back
wow.
from the stoplights, right? From helping my community. I was just like, you know what, I want to feel that feeling again. So I started looking for ways to spend $500,000 charitably. And just so happened at that time, I had heard about what was going on in Myanmar, the Rohingya genocide, which is, government murdering their own people in order to clear out space to build an oil pipeline. One of the most disgusting acts of the modern age. Decided to go do something about it with my money. The exchange rate over there is crazy good for Americans. I figured I could make a difference. Bless you.
Thank you.
Anyways, I went over there, ended up filming a documentary in the world's largest refugee camp. Also, ended up launching drones.
What's the name of the documentary by
It's
chance?
called Blossoms from Ash. It's available on Apple TV and Amazon Prime.
I'm a film guy, so I hear that you made a documentary and I'm gonna watch it.
Heck yeah,
Blossoms of
man.
Ash
Blossoms from Ash. And
from Ash.
yeah, it won the World Fest International's, gosh, the thing's right above me, the Political and International News, award. So, fairly large award, but very few films have gotten a Remy. Few every year. Really shocking to me, given that it was my first attempt at anything having to do with film. Never made a short film, never studied film or anything else like that, but. Just I think it was really the strength of the subject matter that spoke to people. Another thing we did, like I was mentioning, was we launched drones into Myanmar or Burmese airspace and caught their military murdering their own civilians. Caught them in 4K, and we
Wow.
managed to escape with that evidence. Got it to the UN Criminal Court at The Hague after some wrangling, and also the footage made its way to Senator John McCain's office, along with several other people's footage who bravely went into Myanmar and got proof of the crimes against humanity there. Anyways, McCain wrote a bill, called the Burma Human Rights and Freedom Act, put a package of aid towards the refugees. President Trump refused to sign it. President Biden signed a version of it in 2022, sending $300 million in aid to the Rohingya. But that wasn't enough for me. I had actually planned on going back to my sales job at that time, but I had met a scientist in Bangladesh who had developed a novel compatibilizing agent between cellulose and plastic. And I saw infinite applications for this. The planet produces, over 1 trillion tons of cellulose every year, and humanity produces about 740 billion pounds of plastic every year. So you can see there's a bit of a mismatch in terms of what we need and what we produce, and in terms of natural fillers, right? So I said, why is no one, and let me go back to NASA for a second. Let me go back to childhood for a moment. I read Popular Mechanics and Popular Science magazines when I was a kid, right? And every year they would have like a big spread saying, this new plastic is going to save the world, right? And then you never hear that company's name again. And you're just like, why is this so hard? Right? Why are none of these companies succeeding? So when I saw this novel, inexpensive, and useful technology sort of kind of languishing in a lab in Bangladesh, I said, maybe this is the answer. So I convinced the scientist who invented it to sell me his IP. I hired him, and that is the beginning of applied bioplastics. Our very first product was refugee shelters for those very same people that I set out to help in 2017.
Yeah, that's amazing. So whenever you ended up like buying and kind of like creating applied bioplastics and buying the IP for it, how did it escalate to what it is today? Like what are some key markers on what took you on your journey to here?
I think we realized rather quickly that refugee shelters weren't going to pay the bills, but it was something that we were really passionate about doing. So, the next thing we started doing is like, what other things can we do with this interaction between cellulose and plastic, right? And as I mentioned, I'm not a scientist, right? My job through the last 6+ years has been selling people on the vision. But you're asking about the vision. How do we create the vision, right? I think there have been tries at natural fiber composites in the past. People have, for the last 30 years have been trying to get these two materials to work well together because, like I said, there's 1 trillion pounds of ag waste around the world, right? We could make most of the stuff we use on a day-to-day basis out of it if we could just figure that out, right? But one of the biggest things that made me realize that this needed to be commercialized on the commercial side, is that I was looking through kind of the past history of the bioplastics industry. That same curiosity that I had as a child kind of came to the fore as an adult when I was thinking about starting this company. Like, why has everyone else failed? Why do I think that I can succeed? Particularly given that I'm not a polymer scientist, right? Um, and so what I found was actually not a science problem. It's a business problem. So I'll explain. So basically, and there's an article on Medium that I wrote about this. So if you want more info on why this is this way, go to my LinkedIn, look for a article with a big burning pile of cash. That's the one. So
Awesome.
and you'll see why momentarily. So some of the best funded startups of the last 30 years have been bioplastic firms, and all of them have gone out of business. Danimer Scientific, Yield 10 Biosciences. I mean, I can go on, but there's a bunch of them, and we don't have all that much time, right? So I'll pick on Danimer for a moment. $456 million raised, less than 10 years in
Oh
operation,
wow,
bankrupt as of last May,
that's crazy.
right? For like $500 million they raised. Why did they go bankrupt? Right. So, talk to people internally, they'll tell you it's debt mismanagement. But from the outside, what it looks like to me is the exact same business model problem that every bioplastics company has had over the last 30 years since we started talking about bioplastics altogether. And that is this: every single factory that makes plastic in the world is distributed, right? Yes, they're unified for their own purposes, but if you look across the industry as a whole, there's like 1,500 factories that make plastic, right? And they're where they need to be. For instance, the second most plastic consuming nation in the world is India because they make all the plastic tchotchkes that you and I enjoy, like your headphones, man. Probably
Yeah.
made in China or India. They were injection molded, right? Who supplied the plastic to be injection molded? A plastic factory that was probably in China or India, right? But you look at bioplastics companies, and instead of being where the customers are, typically they are led by scientists who are from the West, right? Who are from Europe, who are from, North America. And so when they get the funding, where do they put their factories? Well, they want to stay home, right? So they put their factory in North America or Europe. And all of a sudden, oops, 80% of the market is overseas, right? And so what do you do at that point? Well, you ship your plastic, and shipping plastic costs about 50 cents a pound. You know what they buy plastic for in China and India? About 60 cents a pound, right? So you started a $200 million factory in Oklahoma. You got to pay that back now, right? And you also need to be able to make your plastic for under 10 cents a pound if you want any margin at all because of shipping, right?
That's crazy. I didn't even think about it like that.
It's a
That's a
commodity.
very it's a very interesting thing to like figure out is that like it makes a lot of sense whenever like you put it that way where it's like why would anyone want to spend more on the plastics that are here in America compared to overseas? It makes a lot of sense.
You've nailed it. And when I posted that article, a scientist from Danimer came to argue with me in the comments, and he's like, "No, no, no, you're thinking about this like it's a commodity. It's a value added product because it's more sustainable." And I said, it would be nice, right? It would be nice if that was true. But the input to create the part that is later assembled to create a machine, that, sir, is a commodity. And in commodities, the lowest man wins when it comes to price. And there is no other consideration whatsoever from the buyers, right? And I'm not trying to say Indian people or Chinese people don't care about the environment, but they have a very competitive environment in their industries. So you cannot win if your inputs cost more than everyone else's, right? So it's not a desire to pollute the world. It's not a uncaringness of it's literally business survival. A lot of the plastic injection molding companies make between 4 and 8% margins. If you come at them with a plastic input that costs twice as much, they're going to kick you right back out. And that's what's been happening to the plastic industry or the bioplastic industry for 30 years now. This is why nearly every venture-backed bioplastics company has gone out of business is they cannot compete on price. So what we've done differently because of the technology that I acquired, essentially we make our bioplastic in those 1,500 plastic factories that I mentioned. We will never own a
Mm,
factory. We will never buy a machine. We use other people's machines. How do we do that? Well, our inputs cost less than their previous inputs. So we take that 4 to 8% margin that they used to make it a 15% margin, right? So we're doubling the margins of the people who own the plastic making factories. They do not need to swap their equipment. They do not need to roughly change their processes. There's a few different ingredients that go in, but the process is the same. And then when it gets to the injection molder, the person who's making the object, right, out of the plastic, again, no changes to their machinery. They get to save about 5% on average, right? And there you go. Lowest man on the totem pole wins in commodities. So we're cheaper than everybody. We work in your existing processes, and we don't require you to change your equipment in any way, right? So it's distributed, it's lower cost, and we still take home crazy margins off of that. I can't tell you exactly what because my customers might listen to this show, but everybody is making more money in the value chain, including us.
yeah, that's awesome. It's amazing that y'all have like figured out the system where it's like instead of having to pour half a mil or $500 million into making a factory and everything like that, it's if you just go to the other factories and you are able to have them make your products for you, it's like almost like a rental space, I assume, is kind of like how it runs, right?
Basically, we just send them the ingredients and then they use them in their machines. They put our stuff in the exact same storage that they would put their previous ingredients in. So we don't even have to borrow their space. They literally just take it, put it in their same machines that they were making plastic with before and use our ingredients instead, right? So very easy for them. And I think the difference here is a difference in entrepreneurial thinking. I think that like scientists are awesome. Like most of my employees are like PhD scientists, right? But I think there is something to be said for being led by a salesman, because that's what I am, right? When you're a scientist, you make the thing that is the most sciency, the thing that advances the science the most. But at the end of the day, is that what the customers want, right? And usually the answer is no, right? The customers want something proven, cheap, and effective. That's what most customers care about across all industry, right? So if you come into this from a salesman's mindset or from a scientist mindset, you say, well, I want to make something neat, cool, but like, are you going to be able to make any revenue with that? Probably not. So we're in year six. No, I guess we just started year seven. Most, bioplastics companies never get to profitability. Most of them never even get to revenue. We've been making revenue for 3 years. We have profitable revenue right now. We're heading into our seed round where we're going to be activating a $400 million ARR wait list, because basically every company that has a an interest in decarbonization or in saving money, which is every company.
Yeah.
If they've heard of us, they want our plastic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So kind of like transitioning a little bit into like the business side of things. So you are the sole owner and founder, correct?
No, actually, this house
Gotcha.
you see behind me is shared between me and my co-founder. We've actually been roommates for longer than we've been co-founders. We met on Craigslist, believe it or not. We were both just looking for a roommate,
Oh,
and
wow.
that was, God, almost 10 years ago now. So I've lived with this guy for almost a decade. We share the house, we share the business. He is my opposite in every way. I'm the charisma leader. I'm the sales guy. He's the operations guy. I could not have done this at all without him, and I don't think he could have done it without me either.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, it's so funny that y'all met on Craigslist and now here you are 10 years later running a successful business together. It's so cool.
Yeah, right.
Um, yeah. And do y'all have like any like outside investor structure or anything like that? Or is it pretty much
Oh,
just
certainly.
y'all?
No,
Yeah.
no, we've raised almost 3 million across a bunch of safe rounds. We've also invested pretty heavily in ourselves. I think founders have contributed.
So do you have any like outside investors or anything like that?
Yeah, we've raised a couple informal rounds so far. Tough when you don't have revenue to go get like VC in and whatnot, but we've raised about $3 million, and the founders have collectively put in about 700K over the last 6 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. If you don't mind me asking, just for young business owners who are looking to start a business or looking for that type of funding, can you kind of take me through what you're allowed to tell me about how you were able to maybe find some of these investors?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really important to have, a degree in rhetoric. No, I'm kidding. But no, seriously, like I think one of the things that founders miss most of the time when I'm coaching others is that, you are the expert in what you do. Other people are not expert in what you do. You need to be able to clearly articulate the problem in a way that your grandma or a 5-year-old could understand. And I'm not saying that investors or grandmas or 5-year-olds, but what they do have very frequently is the same level of knowledge about what it is that you're doing, right? So what they're investing in really isn't what you're doing because they don't understand it. They're investing in you, the person, right? Your knowledge of the thing that you are trying to solve, right? So that's tip one is like really screw down your messaging and get it into a sentence or two that people can understand without having to consult a dictionary, right? Or Google, right? They should be able to understand what it is, even if it's highly technical. The second thing that I would say is really important is finding these people. Now, it's tempting to automate, right? But everybody can tell. Just think about when you get automated reach outs on LinkedIn, right? You can see what it is. Like, hi, potential customer. I figure you might have a problem that I can solve, right? Like people can read that, right? So at first, what I did was I searched on LinkedIn, searched on Twitter for investors who were, talking about the topics that my business is related to. And that worked pretty well. Most recently, I wrote a chat GPT script to go and essentially find the right investors on the basis of their thesis, previous investments, other things like that. And then I had it take each person's individual thesis and convert it into a one-liner that speaks to my business and to their priorities. And literally one sentence is like, really challenging Chat GPT here to push the envelope, but essentially, fit their thesis and what I do into one sentence, right? And then I went in and sent an invite to each one of those investors and pasted their personalized message into it. So personalization is the new everything, right? Like, people expect it. And at this point, if you are sending reach outs in an automated fashion, like people can tell not only that, but like people will be even less likely to talk to you. So, you've got to make it personal. Another big thing is, because they're investing in you, the person, and because you have to make it personal, you need to be personable, right? You need to have emotional intelligence. You need to know that when you ask people for money, they're not going to want to give it to you. Most people are contrarians at heart, right?
Mhm.
What you need to do is make them feel valuable, right? Let me ask you for some advice. Based on you investing in X company that's similar to mine, I was wondering if you could tell me about some of their challenges. And then when you're talking, kind of sneak in, what you're doing, right? But don't make it a pitch. People don't like being pitched. People don't like salesmen, right? And having been a salesman my entire life, hiding that fact and forming a genuine connection outside of my goals. Like I'll give you an example. One of my closest business partners had some, family trouble at home. I'm not going to go into it, but like, you know, when we were first talking, I asked him about it. And then I listened for an hour while he talked about this, right? Now, does that affect my business? No. Does that affect me personally? No. But am I interested in him as a human being? Absolutely. Right. And now he's one of my biggest customers. Right. Because I didn't try to sell him. I didn't try to pitch him. I listened. Right. And I check in on him. Right. When we talk, when we have a scheduled conversation about business, I lead off by asking how things are going at home. Right. And he may talk about that for 20 minutes, and it may feel like a waste of time to you if you're a baby founder and you're brand new. But I gotta tell you, this is the most important thing: is that relationship building, actually, genuinely relationship building. Networking is BS, right? Networking, where you pass around your card and be like, "Oh yeah, totally remember me among the other 50 people who gave you a card today. We'll definitely talk later." No, you won't. No, you won't. Don't waste time networking. Use time wisely by connecting with others on a human level.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. My dad's run a business for about 20 years now, and he talks about the same thing where he's like, networking sucks. He builds actual relationships with his closest clients, even
Right.
though a lot of times they just become
They're
friends.
friends. Yeah, exactly. I'm friends with most of my investors, right? And when we have trouble and when we need more capital, if they don't have it personally, they pound the pavement for us to go find more dollars, right? It's not their job. They don't have that much invested in us that if we went under, it would be a life ruiner for them. Why would they put aside their own personal lives and their own personal businesses to go pound the pavement for me? Because they like me, because we're friends, because they want to see me
Yeah.
succeed, you know?
Yeah, it's awesome. So, as a look back on your journey so far, what has been the most memorable roadblock or hurdle you were challenged with that you were forced to overcome?
Man, there have been a lot, but I'm gonna go the personal route with this one. So, as I mentioned at the outset of the call to you before we started recording, I've been struggling with severe autoimmune disease that hit me really early. I didn't realize I was sick, but I was probably sick through most of my 20s. And when I was, when I hit 30, I had just started the business maybe 6 months prior, and all of a sudden I needed an emergency hip replacement. And at 30, right? And I thought, maybe it's that I overtrained, or maybe, because I've been doing martial arts since I was 6. Maybe it's that, maybe it's something else. Nope. Autoimmune disorder, genetic. There's nothing I could have done about it, other than have maybe a less stressful life, which great job being a founder. But regardless, yeah, I mean um, it took me out of things, right? Like it was like getting punched in the jaw from behind. Like don't expect it. No way to prepare for it. And you really have to like fall back and lean on your team in those cases. I don't really believe in, I mean, I believe in, I know that they exist, but like, I don't believe in putting narcotics into my body. And I don't mean like I'm a square, I mean like opioids, right? So,
Yeah.
I did 1 day of pain meds after the hip replacement surgery, and then I toughed it out for the rest of that because I wanted to be there for my team. In retrospect, I probably could have taken the pain meds for a few more days and they would have been fine, right? So that was a lesson in learning how to, trust the process, trust the team. But a year later after recovering from that, I had to do it again. I had to have a second emergency hip replacement.
The
And
same hip or the other
other
hip?
hip. Yeah, the other hip. So I have robot hips now on both sides. But either way, yeah, I mean, the second time around, I decided I was going to really, try and take care of myself. So I hired a physical therapist. He asked me like, what are your goals other than just learning how to walk again? And I was just like, I was messing with him. I was just like, I want a six pack. And he was just like, okay, super serious. Let's do that. And I'm happy to report, like at 33, I got my first six pack while being a founder, right? And I don't have any like fitness hacks for anybody other than like do something that you love doing, for exercise, and it won't feel like work, and you'll be a lot more consistent. And then the other side of things is like, you know, I have now had to live with this for 5 years. I'm on chemotherapy, biologicals, hormones, steroids. They're all terrible, terrible for my longevity, for my body. I expect to make it to maybe 60. I'm 35 right now, right? 55 or 60 is where the expiration date's going to hit. And that has changed my perception of what I do, but it hasn't changed my desire to do what I do. In fact, I would say that it's vastly increased my desire to do what we do. I mean, we've built dozens of shelters for people who have been living inside of tents made of trash for a decade, right? Sometimes more, right? There's no better feeling than getting up out of bed and doing that for a living, right? Solving real problems for real people who can't help themselves because of their financial situation, other things like that. Nobody, it seems, is working on durable polymers, right? Like there's a lot of bioplastics companies in the disposable polymers, like straws, cups, bags, balloons, that sort of thing. But there's nobody else in this space who's working on durables like we are. And it's such an important part of the plastic industry. It's 70% of all plastics made are durable plastics. And so it's just an honor to be able to get up and do this on a daily basis, particularly given how little time I have left. I think a lot of people get to assume that they're going to make it to 80, 90, 100 and whatnot. But I would challenge your listeners to think about this. That's survivorship bias, right? The people who make it that long are not average, right? They've either had really good nutrition or they've just got really great genetics or whatever else like that. But the majority of us aren't going to make it there, right? And so living like you've got all the time in the world is a self-deception. You've got to realize that you are mortal. We are all mortal. You or I, David, could walk out of this conversation and get smacked by a bus, and that would be that. And the question that I'd have for you and all of your listeners is, are you proud of what you're working on? And if not, go found something where you are, right? Because you never know how much time you have left, and you should do something that makes you excited to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. That's an amazing story. It really is. Um, how did this, I guess, impact your business as a whole? Like whenever you first found out everything that was going on.
I think to be a founder, you need a gigantic and extremely fuel efficient internal engine.
Mhm.
You need to be able to live on tiny scraps of good news. You need to not get negged out when something bad happens. You need to be persistent. I mean, this business has run out of money a dozen times in the last 6 years. It is tough to be a pre-product, pre-revenue, science startup, right? We're mostly through that phase right now, but you have to have the callus internally, the mental structure to, it's sort of like gambling, right? You got to be willing to lose it all to be a founder, right? And you got to be willing to roll with the punches and take the hits. I think my martial arts background has really helped in a mentality perspective. If you look behind me, you'll see a long axe and a battle scythe. I do medieval fighting reenactments, right? And we hit each other with real steel. Those are steel weapons up there. And if you're not willing to get smacked with a sword or an axe, you don't belong in that sport. And I think the same thing goes for being a founder. If you're not willing to take the hits, make a bad hire, run out of personal cash and keep going. If you can't do that stuff, I mean, in contrary to what I just said, everybody should go start a business that they're proud of. Maybe you don't belong being a founder, right? It's really important to have that mental toughness. And the way that it affects the business at the end of the day is, you're leading others, right? You're leading other people. And if you crumple at the first sign of adversity, go get strong. Go get strong internally. Go see a therapist and see why that is, because it really takes that persistence. And when you persist, the people around you persist.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree completely. I tried to do a startup about 3 years ago. I tried to start up a little production company for film and commercials and things like that, and it went south real quickly. And I realized it wasn't because of the other people that were in the company, it was all on me. It was because at that point in my life, I was fresh out of college. I was not mentally strong enough to know what I was doing and what I was tackling. And now I feel like I'm in a position where, like, I know what I did wrong for the next thing that I start.
Absolutely. On average, nobody's first business succeeds either, right? So like
Hmm.
that's the other part of needing to be willing to get punched in the face. You have to be willing to lose it all and then try again, right?
Hmm.
And that's a tough mountain for people to climb because losing it all the first time is traumatic, right? It hurts. It makes you question yourself. It makes you question your position in the world. I'm fortunate enough to say that this is my first business. We've now defeated the odds in terms of longevity. Most startups close within the first, like 95% of startups close within the first I think it's 2 years, and then 99% don't make it to 5 years. And we're now we've just started year seven. So, I'm not saying we definitely got it. We're definitely going to make it, but we have beaten the odds for a first time business. But I have to say, most of the people that I've seen succeed failed at least once or twice before they really hit it with their second or third company. So I always encourage people, if you've started one and it didn't work out, try again. You'll probably your stats are way better. Your averages are way better if you do it a second time.
Especially with just all the stuff you learn,
Oh, for
whenever
sure.
you do it the first time, you're trying to figure out what the heck a CRM is. You have no
Right.
idea how to track your own stuff. And then it's like, okay, the second time I know exactly where to go. I know what to get. I know how to find leads. So
Yeah,
it makes it a little bit easier. Um,
absolutely.
well, well, if you're ready for it, I think we might go into a little bit of rapid fire questions.
Hit me.
What is the key to success for you?
Mentality,
Mm.
perseverance. I mean, like I said, it's all about being able to get hit in the face and keep coming forward.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. What is your one piece of advice for other business owners?
Do something that you're proud of. Like I hate to be like this and point out specific industries, but if you're in crypto, look, we've seen we've seen what unregulated financial instruments did. It's called the Great Depression, right? And you guys are all getting excited because there's no regulations on these financial instruments. It's not real money, guys. So that's one thing. Second, like if you're doing a gambling app, don't make things that are addictive to other people. Don't prey on other people, but do something you can be proud of, right? And you will succeed if you do something that you can be proud of because it will be meaningful to you and that will increase your mental toughness, right? If you're in love with your business, you're probably going to succeed.
That's awesome. Yeah. What is a book or podcast you're reading or listening to right now?
Oh man, this is a bit depressing. I'm gonna have to look up the title of the book that I'm reading right now. It has to do with resistance from within during World War II. It's called, oh boy, really depressing. An Honorable Defeat: A History of German Resistance Inside the Reich, 1932 to 1945. I'm reading that for obvious reasons. But I also read a bunch of Star Wars books like for funsies. But yeah, I'm also a pretty big history buff. The other one that I'm reading right now is called The Shock Doctrine. It's about how Western nations create crises in far-flung countries in order to make money.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm a massive Star Wars nerd too.
Oh,
I'm currently reading the Darth Plagueis novel right now.
nice. I
So
just finished the Darth Bane series, and I am on the Darth Revan series now.
the Revan ones are good. I haven't read the Bane ones. Sorry for the
Oh,
listeners on us nerding out for a second.
no, you got to get to the Bane series, man. It's the beginning of the rule of two. You've got to check it out.
Yeah, I really do. I've heard great things about it. So two of my friends, they love it. But
Have you read the Thrawn series?
I have not. I know it's great though.
Dude, you're missing the classics. You got to get on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I need to read Thrawn. I really do.
Thrawn's awesome.
I actually own them too. They're sitting on my bookshelf at home. I just haven't pulled them out yet.
Bro, you are missing out. Go read those after this.
Awesome. So this is kind of a fun question. If you had a little bit of magic dust and you could choose one spot in your business to kind of sprinkle it, where would it be and why?
Oh man, we have been the cockroach for so long. We have done so little with so much with so little money. If I could just sprinkle like $5-10 million in the bank account right now, there are a bunch of projects that we have on hold that we think are going to be extremely cool for the rest of the world. I'll give you an example. We've designed a power cell that is made out of beach sand. For 50 cents a square foot, you can paint a solar cell on any surface, and that surface will generate energy. We've combined that with a underlayer of screen printed aluminum to take the power to where you need it to go. And yeah, I mean that's on the shelf for a while, right? The drone composite, is not on the shelf. We're actively developing it, but we could be doing it a lot faster if we had more cash in the bank. Rapid prototyping facility that will help us move through that $400 million wait list we have, by formulating specific plastics for each of our customers. So, yeah, I mean, look, capital's been light. Over the last few years, Silicon Valley Bank's failure kind of kicked everything off, as far as investors being scared. And then, Trump got in office or got reelected, and investors were scared last year because of that. And then the tariffs hit, and then investors are scared by that. So it's just kind of like, people are putting their money under the mattress right now, and it makes it harder to do our job when we can't raise money. But at the same time, we've made so much progress. I think by next year we're going to be overall profitable and no longer need investment. So just things to look forward to.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we get to the final question of the day, do you want to share with the audience how they can follow you, connect with you, learn more about your business?
Sure, absolutely. Best place to find me and track us is on LinkedIn. It's just my name, and the URL is Alex Applied Bio. You can also find my co-founder there. His name is Colin Ardern. You can also just look up the business. It is appliedbioplastics.com. And my personal website is consequential.co. Put all my wins there, all of my movies there, all that good stuff. So, feel free to hit it up.
Awesome. Well, we've come to the final question of the day, and that is what is most inspiring to you right now?
Man. Most inspiring to me. There's a lot of things that inspire me on a daily basis, but I think if I don't want to be cheesy about this, but my employees are one of the coolest group of people I've ever had the pleasure of working with. We are a team of 14 right now. And as I mentioned, we've got like three to five products, three that are actively being commercialized, and a couple more that are in the works. And they handle complexity with a plume. They handle, me well as well, right? I'm a pretty demanding boss. At the same time, we pay well. We are one of the first companies in Bangladesh to offer benefits to people in that nation. So we I feel like we push hard, and we also take care of them like they're our family. Um, and when I say family, I don't mean like in the, give me extra work. Like, forget about your real family. Work is your family. I think that's like capitalist BS. But what I do
Yeah.
think though is that they understand the importance of our mission. They receive what we give with good grace, and they they keep pushing, and I'm inspired by them every single day, seeing what they're able to accomplish with extraordinarily limited resources.
Awesome, man. That's so cool. Well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed getting to hear everything that you said today. It was amazing. So thank you so much for sharing. Also, I just encourage all of you watching to save this show and come back and watch it again because Alex really did have some great insight for business. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that you get notifications every time a new conversation drops, just like this one. Thanks to everyone who joined us today, and a special thanks to you, Alex, for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, David.